Good morning. My name is Todd Ames. I'm the Synod Treasurer, and I'm here to report on our financials, our financial position, our audit, and our budget for the upcoming year. So, good morning again. My name is Todd Ames. There's been a lot going on in the financial workings of the Synod, and it's all good. I'm pleased to report. This morning, I want to take you through a couple of highlights, and first, an overview of our recent audit results. The preliminary financial results of our operations for the most recent completed fiscal year, and then our 27-28 financial plan or budget. And after we address any questions you have at the end, my goal is that you'll be ready to vote on the spending plan for the 27-28 fiscal year. A couple months back, we received the report from our audit of the fiscal years for that ended 2024, and 2025. It was an audit of two separate years in one report. This not only helped us catch up on our audit cycle, but it was cheaper too. And I'm pleased to share that we received an unqualified opinion, and that is the best result possible on the presentation of our financial statements. The actual audit report is dozens of pages long, and it contains detailed explanations of the accounting that goes behind the reported numbers. And these are those numbers in summary. 2024, you might be able to see the revenues and expenditures. There was a very, very close to break even, while 2025 generated a surplus, and that surplus was driven by increased revenues and decreasing expenditures. The revenue increase was comprised of our return on our investments, really, while expenditures were more of a normalized from a spike in spending in 2024. So 2024 was a little higher in Synod programs that were offered in 2024 that weren't offered in 2025. So that was the related expenditures. Most of that change was related to that. Our net assets remained healthy, but I need to note that about 3/4 are restricted by use from either the originating donor who donated money to the Synod or the Synod Council for specific purposes. And there are about 40 different restrictions in separate accounted for funds comprising these restricted or designated assets. The purposes of these monies is designated they include such things as scholarships, outdoor ministries, new ministries, and shared use of proceeds between the Synod and local congregations and conferences as well, just to name a few. There are more, obviously, but that's our net assets, our financial position. You can see the orange is most of it is restricted to with some extent, and then the blue is what's unrestricted, available for use. Our most completed fiscal year that ended on January 31st, 2026 is still not audited, but that audit is currently being scheduled. Being a not-for-profit, we don't get to be first in line with our audit firms. And that's typical for not-for-profits too. But our revenues so far tentatively exceeded expenditures, and that again was mainly driven by investment returns. It's been a couple of good years for our investments. And about 3/4 of our projected net assets remain restricted or designated by use as well. You can see we generated a surplus. Our revenues exceeded expenditures by about $300,000 tentative. It's unaudited for the fiscal year ended just past. I have that slide is wrong. That should be through January 31st, 2026 on the slide, not 2025. And here's the 3 years revenues expenditures trend. You can see that the 2024 expenditures were slightly higher, and then they came down and they were normalized to 25 and 26. And then our revenues primarily driven by we got some additional grants, but the big chunk of that increase was the return on our investments. But that's a quick snapshot of our revenue and expenditure trends over the last 3 years. Speaking of budgets and the Holy Spirit, I was trying to figure out how to segue into the budget. I've heard a lot of different churches, and your church may call the budget different things. A mission spending forecast, a statement of hope. I've heard I think that's really cool. Or sometimes it's called the annual budget. But there are a lot of other titles. Today, I'll likely call it a financial plan, or sometimes a budget. I go back and forth. I hope that you've had a chance to peruse and maybe even memorize. There'll be a quiz later. The entire budget. I think it should be in the pre-assembly book. I'll go over the highlights of it today, and I have the details available. And so we'll wait for the questions at the end. First, I want to talk about how we do things. Any budget is a plan. And it's always been my approach to budget building to begin with mission and ministry first. Then we determine what is needed to fulfill and achieve those goals for mission and ministry. The estimates we develop are based on past results and known changes to current operations or new ideas or proposed programs or ministries that we would just have to have an estimate on a budget within that as well. So it's really, we start with what we want to spend first, and then we get to what we need in order to make that hope come true. And you'll see that's primarily comprised of what we get from local congregations. There are three drivers, and throughout our financial history, there's always been three primary drivers for our budget. They significantly impact our plans and our operations as well. And if you thumbed through the budget document, you'll see there's a lot more lines than just these three, but these are the big ones. All of the others would have to change together to have anywhere near the impact that these three have on our financial activities. Personnel costs represent about 38% of our total expenditures, while our commitment to the wider church is another 30%. Contributions from local congregations, your churches, comprise more than 90% of our planned revenues. So the Synod operations are very dependent on the amounts of monies that we receive from the local congregations. This year for personnel, we plan to this budget increases the staff wages based on Social Security index. That's what we use as a measure for cost of living. This year we added an additional 1% on top of the 2.8% that was measured by the index. It comes out every October, and that was last October. It was 2.8%. It's real today. I don't think it's 2.8%, but it's the one we've always used to increase staff salaries. And these are preliminary plans that include additional staff and/or staff time of existing staff, as well as new programs that the Synod staff is developing with support of the Synod Council too. And the bishop and other people will talk about those new ideas and new programs. We also have anticipated increases in benefits based on the info from our providers and past trends for health insurance and such. And all this adds up to an estimated 22% increase from what we actually spent this past year. But remember, this budget doesn't begin for another 270 days. Each of the last 4 years, we've been able to afford incremental increases to the rate and therefore the amounts we give to the wider church. And frankly, it was our cuts to our support of the ELCA that helped balance our budgets in past years when austerity seemed to be a mission necessity. We are working toward a long-term goal to restore our historical rates of contributions in the 42% range. This year, we plan for 39% of the amounts that we receive from local congregations to be passed on to the ELCA. However, this is based on contributions we expect to receive from congregations in the Synod, which we're projecting to be lower. All that said, this increase from 38 to 39% will actually end up in a decrease by 1.3% from this past completed fiscal year. And as a Synod, we are little more than a group of congregations. And as congregations, if we do not have mission and ministries in the forefront of our plans, we risk, I think, becoming a country club who serves a lot of Jell-O salads. We work hard to hear the Holy Spirit's plans for our role in God's mission, in our world, and God's world. And then at the Synod, we rely on the support of local congregations to make that come to be. The amount listed as planning to be received from local congregations is simply put, our sharing what is necessary to achieve the mission as we've discerned and designed. The hope that this budget is primarily financed by an 8.4% increase over what we received from local congregations this past fiscal year, but it's a decrease from the budget. That means that what we received, and you'll see that later, what we received was less than what we budgeted for from local congregations. But this is all about, and that's what your vote is really on, I think, is a commitment from local congregations to fund this budget. When we vote yes for this plan, we're also voting yes to finance it. Like I said, 90% of what we receive is from local congregations. These are the big numbers behind those arrows and then percentage signs that I just shared. You can see the proposed budget there is in yellow, and then I compare it to the current fiscal year's budget, as well as the 2025, the last completed fiscal year's unaudited, and then the last completed fiscal year's budget. And you can see the three big lines are really the biggest numbers. I want to point out the changes in total other revenue and other expenses. Those mostly reflect what we expect to receive as amounts designated and then pass through for such things as World Hunger, Lutheran World Relief, disaster relief, and campus ministries. If we don't receive those monies, then we don't show them as expense. So they're I would call them a wash. So by and large, they net out. Otherwise, the expenses are comprised of all those other lines in the budget document if you've had a chance to look at them. But those are the big lines that you can see. Can everybody can still see the screen, right? It's okay, cool. Historically, our budget estimates were conservative, and this helps us better plan and develop reasonable and more reliable budget estimates. And here are comparisons of the proposed budget and the current year budget, and then as well as the revenues for this last completed fiscal year. And you can see that our proposed budget revenues are a little bit lower because the stock market, although we've done well, our investments return, I don't like to rely on those as being, to continue to go up. But we also decrease the amount we expect to receive from local congregations in both compared to actual and compared to the current year's budget as well. And this is a similar comparison, except this is the planned expenditures side of the budget in the big ELCA mission support, personnel, and then the other expenses as well. The increase in our expenses are due to the increase in costs related to staff payrolls, related taxes and benefits as well. We're also expanding Synod work that requires additional expense and likely maybe additional staff or staff time. And we're working towards the levels of contribution to the ELCA percentage-wise where we used to be historically. And you can get all the details that are included in the budget document, but like this is just a quick snapshot of all the different lines that are there. But they should all be in your pre-assembly book. So that's the high level view of our financial report, and I think I did go pretty fast. I don't know if you all have any questions. And if you want, I'll take all your questions now. I'll unshare the screen. But if you think of a question later, feel free to email the Synod office. Your questions, I use them in my presentation so I write them down, not your names, but I'll use them in my presentation to make sure that they're answered in the presentation at the assembly on the floor as well, because I like to assume that if one of you have a question, there's probably 10 others like you that have a similar question. So you're being the brave one and asking it. So I assume it's a good question, and I'll answer it for everyone.
Well, thank you for being with us today, and thank you, Todd, for leading us through this the budget forecast, hope, spending plan, whatever we want to call that. And I do want to alert all of you that there are 3 videos in this series. The first one was done yesterday, but it's recorded and will be made available. That's on resolutions and memorials. That was Pastor Lowell did that one. And then this one is budget and finance. There's another this evening at 7, and we'll do the same thing. We will conduct it live and then have it later. That one is on hospitality, which includes registration and also voter training. So those links are also in the Upstate update that you received, and I assume where you found the link for this meeting. So if there are no questions about that, then I'll turn us over to Todd and your questions about finance and budget.
Okay, thanks. Are there any questions about the budget or the financial report or the audit?
Well, also, all of you now know, if you didn't before, you know what Todd looks like. So when you see him at the assembly, you can say, hey, I got this question.
Yep. And throughout the entire assembly, I carry around the budget. I have a tablet, and because I like to have conversations. I'm nerdy like that. I like to have conversations. I'll talk about other things too. Don't avoid me because he's going to talk about the budget and then run away.
So Todd, maybe just a little clarification. The
Uh-huh.
total contribution revenue is down primarily because you think that the investments are going to be a little bit less and you don't want to rely on that. I agree with that philosophy.
Hmm.
Are you, you're also, I think I heard you say that you also believe that there'll be a little bit less coming from congregations,
Right.
since I think many of the congregations face the same problem the Synod does, is financial squeeze, if you will.
Right, rising expenditures, that like primarily the Social Security index that we use as a measure of, and we've used that for years, as a measure for what the cost of living is that we tend to base staff pay increases on, um, is is rarely on when we talk about it. Like I don't know if it's a seasonal thing that comes out in October, but the last several years when we're meeting as an assembly and during this season of time, it's usually not that whatever it was back in October. But it is what we use. We can adjust pay raises, and we've done that in the past. Like after we've adopted the budget, we can adjust increases if we have a financing source for it, um, to offset significant, inflation that goes through the roof, type of thing. Because that's happened a couple. Currently, we're experiencing some inflation, especially if you like to drive. But in the past, we've had spikes in inflation as well. The presentation, there was a two-part in the actual assembly workbook. I'm trying to go to more succinct yet with detail. So the presentation that I have in the assembly book, it was it was I would call it mid-level because I made different purposes like direct support, program expenses, personal expenses, general admin, and an other. And then I think it was either an attachment or a separate file that was the detail of all the accounts and all the data. Because there are people like me, if I were in the audience, I would want the detail and the data. That's what I enjoy. But then there's other people who are more, they enjoy English more. So I try to be much more summarized and more pictorial with that as well. And if, like I said before, if you think of any other questions, feel free to email the Synod office. They can forward them on to me, or they might answer it themselves as well. Because we have a finance committee that'll help out when the what causes it. So I come up with these through a lot of conversation, these estimates. These are not my own. Um, I bring advice, but the details are in Synod operations. So if there aren't any other questions, I turn it back to you, Jeff.
Thanks again, Todd, and for the questions. And this concludes this video for today, and I look forward to seeing you very soon at Synod Assembly. And if you have any questions about the assembly itself, feel free to email me or call or something. My email address is pastorwilson@holytrinitybuffalo.org. Again, pastorwilson@holytrinitybuffalo.org. And I look forward to seeing you. God bless you. Bye-bye.